Hi, Liala from Murlo. Thank you for joining me. This would be phase 3 of our Rambouillet fleece, taking it from raw wool to a finished product. Today we're going to be dyeing some of the wool that we've got. And so over here we have a 20-quart stock pot, stainless steel, and it's about 2/3 full of water. It's about the same temperature as what the wool is currently sitting at. I also have here a dye that I pre-mixed, and because I mixed this several days ago, I just have it in some water to heat it up. It's a mixture of yellow and red, and the yellow dyes will sometimes drop out of the solution, and especially the red, it just seems to find other pieces of red, and then you've got little strings. So if I didn't heat it up and stir it up again to get all the colors incorporated, you would end up with splotches of a bright orange or even red and little chunks of that stuck to your fleece. We're using acid dyes. The dyes themselves are not acid, but they do require an acid as a fixer to get that dye onto the wool in a way that's color fast. So we're going to be using vinegar today. I don't buy the pre-mixed dyes. Instead, I go with the primary fusion, which is when you buy the kit, you get swatches that will show you the light to dark colors. And it comes with a black and your 3 primary colors. You mix according to the swatch you want. So each swatch has a number. In the book is a corresponding recipe for that number. And I don't use the scientific measuring spoons. I instead use the ones that are the drop, the dash, the pinch, the smidge. This is just a more economical way of dealing with it. And you can find online what the corresponding one is, and then just mix up your dye accordingly. I do it because I'm not doing pounds and pounds of the same color. I might be doing a couple of pounds, and I just find that this gives me a wide variety of colors without having to go and buy and have all these containers of dye sitting around. So we're going to prepare the pot, and we'll be back with that. So we're just going to check it and see if it is in fact clean. And I can tell by feeling it that I think we've got most of the lanolin out, or enough at least that when it goes into the dye pot, the dye will take. So we're going to pull all of these out, and then we're going to add the next product, which is to ensure that we can get the dye to take in vibrant colors. This has been just sitting in rinse water, so we're going to pull a piece out. Now, you're supposed to massage this product in. It's a wash and dye product. It is supposed to help ensure that the dyes are getting into the center of the fiber. I don't know, I'm probably putting the size of a walnut in diameter of the product in my hand for this. So that sits for 10 minutes. And then we can take it from there and put it into the dye pot. Heated up the dye because it was mixed up a couple of days ago. And I put it in this container just because I wanted to make sure that I didn't have any strings of the red, because the red kind of gets together here. Now one-handed trying to do this without spilling. Okay, so I put a tablespoon of the mixture in, and we're just going to give that a bit of a stir. I'm hoping for a light yellow. I can always add more, but I thought, well, I'll start off with a tablespoon to begin with. Then I'm going to add the fiber. I'm just going to throw these bags in. I'm going to give stuff a push down, and happiness is I've got room to move this stuff around, so that's good. So I'm going to add some vinegar in a couple of minutes. I like this to just sit here first for a bit. And I kind of have a feeling we're going to need more dye, but like I said, we'll wait and see because there's not a lot in that water. But I wanted a lighter color, so we'll see how this goes. And if we need to add more dye, we add more dye. Okay, so I've let it sit there for just a couple of minutes just to see that it soaks stuff up. So I'm just going to add some vinegar. And yes, I know I'm pouring it right on the fleece, but I've never heard it doing that before. So then I'm just going to use this and plunge stuff around a bit to get the vinegar mixture up. I've got my heat set medium. Slower that you get to a simmer point, I find the better the dye fixes to the fiber, because you want stuff colored fast. So we're going to let this come up to a simmer, and I'll show you what it looks like at that point, and we'll go through how long it's going to take and how we let the dye finish off. So the fiber's been in the dye pot probably 15 to 20 minutes. And I can see that we have very little dye left in the water. I know it says to bring it up to simmer, and I think 185 is supposed to be the optimum temperature, so we're just going to double check. I don't typically do this, but for anybody that's new, they might want to know what the temperature is. So we're about 175, so I'm going to want that around 185 to 190, somewhere in there. And then we'll double check again to see, have we exhausted all of the dye? And once that happens, I just pop the lid on, let it cool off. So we'll be back in a few minutes. So we're back at the pot. ProChem dyes say you want your temperature to be around 185. This got up to 190 by the time it simmered. We're just going to take a look here, and we can see that that is clear. So we're shutting off the heat. I'm going to pop the lid on it. We're going to let it cool off. Once it's cooled, then we will rinse it. And when we rinse it, we will start at the same temperature as the wool, slowly increasing to hot because I want to make sure it's color fast. We'll add the wash and dye, leave it 10 minutes, give it a thorough rinse, and hang it out to dry. So we will be back. Now that the wool's been sitting in the dye pot, it's now cooled off enough that we can rinse it out. So I'm just going to pull it out, and then we'll go over to the sink. We are at the sink, and I've got the water running, so it's about the same temperature as the wool. So we are going to give it a rinse. I'm just going to lift this so we can see underneath. It looks fairly clear, but to ensure that we get all that residual dye out, we are going to put the product on the wash and dye to get the residual dye off of it. So we'll be back with that. So there's no yellow coming out. So we are going to go ahead and add the wash and dye. And this will just ensure that if there is any residual dye, we get it all out. And that way it's going to be color fast. This might go in a Fair Isle or Color Work sweater, and you certainly don't want that to bleed into something that's white. So we'll finish adding that, and then we'll leave it for 10 minutes. While we're waiting, I thought I would show you the dye pot. You can see that there's no dye left in here. However, you'll notice that when we put the ladle further down, the water's still opaque. So that tells me even in the dyeing process, there was more lanolin came out. Okay, so we are now rinsing off. So I'm giving a good swoosh down because I want to make sure that there's no dye left in here. And I can tell from the water that there's no dye in there. So we've got it all out. So we're just going to squeeze it out, and then we'll take it out to the rack. So we've got the dyed wool out here to dry. The wool that we're going to leave in the natural state is actually almost dry. It's about 29 degrees Celsius here today with a 24-kilometer breeze, so it's not going to take long. So once this is dry, then we'll have a look at it and see how to prep it. This is the Isle of Murlo. Thank you for watching.